Good evening. We're so happy you made it, Hanan.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. 8 o'clock. I'm getting used to this new time, but I don't want to get too used to it. But I'm glad both of you can make it. Hopefully James will be able to join us, but we should get started.
I'm going to text him to remind him in case he can make it.
Okay.
Good to see you, Hanan.
Yeah, likewise. I didn't go to Brooklyn today, so I can.
Okay.
I'm here.
Good work.
Yeah. Let's see how. It's just hard in the middle, because like you're already involved in the day. Like the morning is like,
I know.
It's like okay, I've got something in the oven. I'll have to take a break at some point, and that kind of stuff. But all right.
Okay, you're in text James. Well, let's get started. Today's daf is daf tet, daf 9 in Taranith. But yesterday we got to the bottom of tet amabet, around 6 lines from the bottom. And we are continuing our discussion, again, all Agadata for the most part, about rain. And so there's a siman, kibbutz, gaisot, staka, parnas, siman. Those are all things we're going to be discussing today. But let's start from 5 lines from the bottom, those 2 dots. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Says Rabbi Yochanan, Gadol Yom HaGishamim Ki Yom Kibbutz Goliot. The day of rain, the rain, the blessing and the again, we talked about this yesterday. The day of rain was like so meaningful, like the day of the marketplace, because everything was running around. But here it's saying it's as meaningful as the day of Kibbutz Goliot. This day that, one day God will bring together all the people. There'll be a tremendous tumult. Everyone's coming from everywhere. People don't speak the same language, traveling. That rain is the same thing. It's this great thing. Shenemar, next place in the pasuk it says, Shuva Hashem et shivitenu. God will return all of the shivitenu, all the exiles, all the captives, ka'afikim banegev, like the afikim in the desert. What is the afikim? So obviously, literally, it means a plant, but it says like more in afikim el matar, means like rain. Shenemar vayiru afike yam. So it'll be like this great rain, meaning just like rain causes everyone to be, stunned and having to get grips of their new surrounding, so too will kibbutz galiot. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, the next thing Rabbi Yochanan said is got 3 lines on the bottom. Gadol Yom HaGishamim, rain, the day of rain is so great, meaning the power and the meaning of that day. Shafilu gaisot poskot bo, even the troops. You can have this army, this invincible army. It'll be stopped by some rain, right? That rain, a hard rain, of course, right? That a hard rain will stop even an army. Shenemar, and it's the pasuk in Tehillim, tilameha raveh nachat gedudeha. What does that mean? Tilameha raveh, that when the roads are filled up with rain, then the gedudim, the troops, will be nachat, they'll rest, right? So that troops will have to rest when it rains too much, because you could have all the weapons in the world. I guess nowadays we're a little impervious, but back then you could have all the weapons in the world, right? But if it's raining and you can't get through the roads, you can't do anything. Rain only stops because of the sin of people who promise to give charity in public and then they don't give it. Right? They get up and they just say, I'm going to give $1 million or whatever, and then they don't pay for it. Shenemar nisiim, this is supposed to be mishlei. Nisiim v'ruach v'geshem ayin. Right? The clouds, the wind, the rain, none of that's there. Ish mitalel b'matat sheker. A person is making themselves praised by false giving, meaning you make yourself out to be this big donor, and then you don't pay up. And so that's why you don't have rain. One more statement of Rabbi Yochanan. What does it mean when it says, or what's the meaning of the pasuk? Aser ta aser, right? At kol truat zarecha, right? Take ma'aser from your truah. Why's a double language? Aser ta aser. Why does it say twice? So says Rabbi Yochanan, the way you could read that is aser b'shil shetit asher, as a shin, not a sin. Take maaser on condition, or so that you become rich. Right? You think you give maaser, you become poor. If you take 10% of your wealth, you give it away, it's hard to save up for retirement. But says Rabbi Yochanan, no, the more if you give it away, you will become rich. Ashkeche Rabbi Yochanan liyanuka deresh lakish. Now, Rabbi Yochanan bumped into the child of Reish Lakish. If you recall, we'll see this in today's daf, right? Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish had a rather fraught relationship, as Hanan, I think, was talking about yesterday, right? Where Reish Lakish and Rabbi Yochanan were very close. And Rabbi Yochanan ultimately, his sister married Reish Lakish, right? That was part of the deal in Bava Metzia. They said, if you become and learn, you can marry my sister. And then, of course, Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish had a falling out, and Rabbi Yochanan caused Reish Lakish to die. Right? He requested whatever. He was angry at him. He ended up dying. And then the Gemara says in Bava Metzia that when Reish Lakish died, Rabbi Yochanan was bereft. It was like, now I'm missing Reish Lakish. Like I've got, but either way, this is the child, right? So this is the kid who's Rabbi Yochanan's nephew, because he married, remember, his Reish Lakish's wife was his sister, but his father is dead on Rabbi Yochanan's account. So one day, Rabbi Yochanan finds
His brother-in-law. His brother-in-law.
But no, Reish Lakish was his brother-in-law, but the kid is the nephew.
Oh, the kid is the nephew, right?
Yeah. So Reish Lakish, unfortunately, is dead by this point. But Rabbi Yochanan bumps into the Yanuka to Reish Lakish, the child of Reish Lakish, his nephew. And Amarle, maybe he felt guilty, so he was trying to give him some attention. So he said, "Ema li psukech, tell me what'd you learn in Cheder today? Like what are you reading? What's your pasuk?" Right? That they like to say that. Amarle, so he said, "I read this pasuk in Devarim, aser ta aser." Amarle, now Rashi understands that this is still the child asking Rabbi Yochanan, "My aser ta aser." Why is it double language? I didn't understand it. Right? Why didn't just say take ma aser? Why did it say aser ta aser? So Amar Leis, Rabbi Yochanan explained to this kid, aser b'shvil shetit asher. You should give maaser on condition that you become rich, meaning you can sort of challenge God and you can say, I'm going to give maaser and I'm going to become rich. Amar Leis, so the child said to Rabbi Yochanan, Menalacha, how do you know? I mean, how do you know that giving maaser is going to make you rich? Amar Leis, zil nasi, go and test God. Try it out. Make an announcement this year. I'm going to take my maaser on condition that I want God to show that I'm going to be paid back.
Aren't you supposed to? Isn't it a mitzvah to give maaser?
It is.
I mean, in other words, you're not doing something that you're not. You're already supposed to do it.
Correct, but I guess you could. Well, so
he's giving extra, maybe, or
very, very good question. It's a very good. I was trying to avoid the question. It's a very good question. But let me just say the simple answer, which is not sufficient, which is that, or one simple answer, which is that, even though it's a mitzvah, you can still do it. Meaning, like, you could say, keep it on the aim so you could live a long life. You could say, like, God, I'm doing this. I want to prove what you've promised. So God doesn't promise riches for every mitzvah, right? Doing mitzvah of whatever, Shabbos is not associated with riches. So anyway, so that's the simple answer. Tosfos here, it goes in great length, partly to address exactly what you said, because the other meaning, Tosfos here quotes a Sifri, which is a very, very controversial Sifri, that aser ta aser, in fact, tells you that not only do you take maaser on grain, but you take maaser on everything.
Right.
Because the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says you take maaser on your grain. The Torah doesn't say that if you get paid by the city, you pay maaser, right? It doesn't. So the Sifri seems to extend that, and Tosfos goes into a lot of detail about whether it's Doraita and Drabanan, and who argues, and there's a big machloket to the Rishonim and Nachronim even, whether the mitzvah of maaser is a requirement, is it a Doraita, is it Drabanan, is it nothing? There's a Bach that says it's not even a mitzvah.
You mean not on other things other than grain?
Yeah, other than grain, saying on other money. But
right.
But that might be, and then there's someone, I forgot who I heard this, who brings a proof from this case even, that like this kid, I forgot who it was very clever. This kid, Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish's kid, probably didn't have a field. I don't know why they know that. And he's taking maaser on his inheritance, which maybe doesn't even seem to apply to the Torah's maaser. Either way, whether it's a good proof or not. But it gets into this whole question of aser ta aser might mean, and the Gemara actually darshans this. We had this Gemara, that it means for behema, it means for other things, like there's more expansive maaser. But either way, Rabbi Yochanan says to the kid, test it out, right? Give your maaser, al tanai, or make a condition. God, I'm testing you. I want to be paid back, or I want to make a lot of money this year or something. So the kid said to Rabbi Yochanan, Amrle, 6 lines from the top, Ni shari l'ntziyah kadosh baruch hu. What do you mean? I can't test God out. Haktiv, I learned Dvarim, it said, or Et Chanan, lo tenasu et Hashem. It says, don't test God, right? So what do you mean you can test God? Amrle. So Rabbi Yochanan said back to him, you're right. But Hachi Amar Rabbi Hoshaya, I guess Rabbi Hoshaya was his teacher, Rabbi Yochanan's teacher, I heard from Rabbi Hoshaya, chutz mizu, that the prohibition against testing God does not apply to tzedakah or maaser. When you give maaser, you're allowed to test God. You're allowed to say, I'm doing this, God, on condition, or not condition, like I'm testing you. Will you pay me back in this way? And the Nemar, and how do I know that, says Rabbi Shaya? Because if you get in Malachi, Malachi tells the people, Haviu et kol maaser al beito otzar, bring all your maaser to the storehouses of God. Vihi teref bebeiti, right? And it will be a big thing in my house, meaning you'll have a lot of money. Uvechanunai nabazot, and you can test me, bechanuni, right? Like a bechina. You can test me bezot, Amar Hashem, b'tzevaot, says Hashem God. Im lo eftach lachem et rubat hashamayim. Test me out. Prove if I don't open up the windows of heaven, harikoti lachem bracha ad b'lidayin. I will rain down on you blessings until you have enough, right? So you clearly see from the pasuk in Malachi that Malachi is the Navi telling them, come and bring your maaser to God, and then God promises you, test me, right? It says literally the word bechanunina, test me to see if I'm not going to fulfill my promise. Now, before we continue the story of what the kid said next, it says Gemara, a little interlude here. What does ad b'lidai mean, right? It's a weird terminology. It says, I'm going to give you gifts until you don't have enough. What does it mean you don't have enough, right? B'lidai. My ad b'lidai, I'm a Rami Barchama, I'm a Rav. No. It's interesting. Ad yivalu. The word b'li is from the word yivalu, which means worn down. And until your lips, siftotechem milomar dai, until your lips are worn down from saying enough. Meaning, someone gives you a gift, you thank them. They give you another one. After a while, you're like, I've got enough. Thank you. So that's what it means. So you're going to get such a great gift from God for giving this maaser. Amar lei, so the kid, this is a great response, a little chutzpahdik, but very chutzpahdik. The kid said to his uncle, Rabbi Yochanan, oh, that's pasuk from Malachi. I never got there. I'm in third grade. I didn't get to Malachi. If I had gotten to that pasuk, I wouldn't need you or your Rebbe Hoshaya. So a little chutzpah, the kid takes a little bit after his father, But thanks a lot for the explanation. But I didn't need you to tell me all this great stuff. Just teach me Malachi, and I would figure it out myself. Okay, that's the end of that story. The two. This is where there's another story that Ashkechai Rabbi Yochanan Lianuka Dorish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan bumps into the same kid, right? And the kid is Yativ Va'amar. The child is reading the following pasuk. There's a pasuk in Mishnah. It says, Ivelet Adam Tisalif Darko. This is a great pasuk. I love this pasuk. The Ivelet Adam, the Aval means, right, the sins of a person will push him off the path. Tisalif Darko, right, will remove him from his path, meaning you're going to suffer, you're going to have catastrophe or bad luck because you do sins. But El Hashem Yizaf Libo, but his heart will be angry at God. Meaning people do it all the time, right? You do something wrong, you get punished for it, and then you're angry at Hashem for the thing happening to you. So that's the pasuk in Mishlei. So the kid was reading the pasuk, and Rabbi Yochanan was sitting there. Yatev Rabbi Yochanan, become mittameh. Rabbi Yochanan wondered, and he said out loud, Amar, he said, Mi'ika midi dechtivi b'ktuvi t'lo remizi baraita. Right? There's nothing that's written that's original, purely original in the Ketuvim, in Mishlei, that doesn't have some remez, some hint in the Torah. So where is this concept that people basically, blame God for their own failures and their own faults? Where is that hinted to in the Torah? So the kid, right, he doesn't have a name. This child of Rabbi Shlakish, Amar Lei, said to him, what do you mean it's not Remizi Baraita? Atu halo Remizi, this is not it referred to in the Torah. Aktiv, what about the pasuk coming up? Not this week's parsha, the next week's parsha, I guess, or 2 weeks. Right, the brothers, remember, they go down to Egypt. They get their money back in their sack, right? And they find the money, and they're terrified because they know that Yosef is going to come after them and is going to chase them, right? They know they're in big trouble. But they don't. But remember, they even say later, the reason we're in trouble is because we sold Yosef, right? We did something wrong. But what do they say in this pasuk? Each one to their brother was terrified, and they said, "Mazot asa Elohim lanu." What did God do to us? Right? It's not God who did it. you deserve this punishment. The brothers knew they deserved the punishment. And so even though they knew it, they still blame God, right? So that's the remez of this pasuk in Mishlei, that people basically go off the path and they fail, and then they blame God for what they did wrong. So this is what the kid said. So Rabbi Yochanan was very impressed by this. Dal Eine, Rabbi Yochanan lifted up his eyes, right? Rabbi Yochanan was an old man and he sat there with his eyes closed, but he heard a kid with a good shot, so he looked up to see who this kid was, right? Rashi has a whole nother shot from the Gemara elsewhere that Rabbi Yochanan had these really heavy eyelashes and he couldn't see. So he had to he had a special tool to lift up his eyelashes when he wanted to see. Rashi quotes this, Gemara says it actually. Anyways, he lifted up his eyes, the Chazabe, and he was looking, who's, right, you can see this thing. Who said that? Who's that kid? So of course, this little boy, his mother is standing in the back, and she was like, no way. I've had enough trouble with Rabbi Yochanan in my family, right? I don't want him to anywhere near my child. He killed my husband. I don't need any friends from Rabbi Yochanan. Atya Ime, his mother came, Afikte, she took him out of there. Amruleh, she said to him, Tami Kameh, go away from him. He doesn't do to you what he did to your father. So remember, this is Rabbi Yochanan's sister speaking, just for the record, right? So as we always say, you can imagine what their Thanksgiving was like. But it was quite a challenging, yes. I mean,
she blamed him for her husband's death, huh?
Well, she was right, I think. I mean, we'll get to the Gemara in Bava Metzia in a couple of years. Okay. But we'll get there. Anyway, so that's the end of that story. Continues the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, Matar b'shvil yachid. Can be brought by God for an individual, right? Let's say you have an individual who Rashi's examples, they planted late, right? So everyone planted early and their fields already watered, but this person planted late and they need rain in order for their grain to grow. Sometimes Hashem will make it rain just for one person. But parnasa b'shvil rabim, but parnasa, which is a much more general economic support, meaning things are going okay. Rashi says the bracha, the grain, infections, things like that. That only happens for the tzibur, meaning God will not change the whole order of things just for an individual.
Well, it's true. I mean, the economy is, it's a macro.
Okay, it's a macro phenomenon, correct.
Yeah.
So how do we know that? Says the Gemara, Matar b'shvil yachid, rain will come for even an individual. Dichdiv yiftach Hashem lecha et otzra tov. Hashem will open for you. Lecha is personal, right? Hashem's storehouses. Latet matar tzecha, to give rain for your field. But parnasa b'shvil rabim. But what we call parnasa, a more general thing, only happens for a rabim. Dichdiv hineni mamtir lachem lechem. When Hashem is talking about giving bread or man in this case, right? Sustenance, Hashem says, I'll give to you, lamtir lachem, not lecha. I'll give you lechem. So that's the basis that rain will happen for individuals, but things like man or food or crops being healthy will only happen for a tzibur. Meitvei. It's not true. What about the following Braita? Now, this is a very, very famous Braita, even if you haven't heard the Braita itself, but the concept. What's the Braita say? Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Says Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, Shlosha parnasim tovim amdu Yisrael. There have been 3 parnasim, right? Parnas there means providers, people who give sustenance, who support the economy, who provide for Bnei Yisrael because of them. There have been 3 big parnasim. And who are they? Elohim, Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. One family, right? That family, all 3 of the individuals in that family were parnasim for Bnei Yisrael. What were the 3 things that they gave, right? Sorry, there were 3 great gifts through those people. The Elohim, Be'er, Anan, Uman. Right, the 3 gifts of the desert, the well with water, the Anan, which was the physical protection, the house, so to speak, the air conditioning, the physical plant. And man, and the food that came from Hashem, right? The food, the bread. Be'er was b'schut Miriam, which, right, I think everyone knows this, right? The Be'er, the well, was b'schut Miriam. So sure know that. Amud Anan b'schut Aaron, that the cloud and the protection happened because of Aaron. And man b'schut Moshe, and the man was done through the schut of Moshe. Now, what happened when Miriam died? Meta Miriam, when Miriam died, Nistalika Be'er. The water went away. The Be'er, not the water, but the Be'er was lost. Shenemar, and how do we know that? Because the pasuk says, "V'tamat sham Miriam," right? Miriam died in the Torah. We talk about it, and then it says, "Tiv Batrei." The next parsha is Lo Hayamayim Leida. They had no water, right? So what's the connection? Says Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. The connection is that they didn't have any water because when Miriam died, the water was lost, right? So says the Gemara, says the Braita, "V'chazru b'schut shteihem," but it came back. The water ultimately came back b'schut Aaron and Moshe. Remember, it was a little complicated because they had to go hit the rock, talk to the rock, right? It didn't happen right away. But Moshe and Aaron were the schut to bring back the water. Then mate Aaron. Unfortunately, then Aaron died next, and Moshe's left alone. So nistalku ananei kavod. The ananei kavod left. How do we know that? Shenemar, because the pasuk says again in the same parsha, "Vayishma Knani melech Arad ki mate Aaron." Right? That the Kanani, the king of Arad, heard that Aaron died. So what? Who cares? Mashmu Ashama Shemet Aaron. Right? Mashmu Ashama. What did he hear that led to a war with Bnei Yisrael? Shama Shemet Aaron. He heard that Aaron died, and there was a next step. And the clouds went away. So all of a sudden he thought, wait, they lost their protection. Right? Bnei Yisrael was like a walled city walking through the desert. All of a sudden they lost their wall. Because Savar Nitna Lo Reshuti Lechem B'Yisrael. He thought, now I can go fight with them. V'hainu dichtiv, and this is the meaning of the pasuk of Vayiru Kol Ha'am. The people all literally means they saw Ki Gava Aaron, that Aaron died, right? But says Rabbi Avo, I'll take Vayiru, that they saw, Ela Vayirau, they were afraid, right? All of the people were terrified, not that Aaron died, but they were terrified because Aaron died, right? So ki here does not mean that, it means because of. And that's, of course, what Reish Lakish said. Kedar Reish Lakish. The Amar Reish Lakish, ki, the word ki in the Torah can mean many different things, right? Ki can be mishamesh ba'arba l'shonot. Ki can have 4 different meanings. It can mean e, which means but, dilma, maybe, ella, sort of, e is if. Dilma is but, ella is if, Dilma is maybe, ella is but, and diha, and this is the one that's going to mean here, because, right? So they saw basically that they were afraid because Aaron died, and when Aaron died, the Ananei Kavod went away. So people were terrified, they were vulnerable. Anyways, Chazru Shneim b'schut Moshe, both gifts of the water and the clouds came back just b'schut Moshe. Of course, this is going to be our question, which is, how could they come back b'schut Moshe if Moshe was an individual, and you just said you could never get parnasah because of an individual? But we're going to ask the question after the Braita. Mate Moshe finishes the Braita. When Moshe died, they all went away. Nistalku kulam. They lost all the gifts, the man, the water, and the Ananei Kavod. Of course, thankfully, they were about to enter Eretz Yisrael, where they had those things. They were out of the desert, right? But they had no food, no water, and no protection when Moshe died. They had an army of Yoshua, and then they went into Eretz Yisrael, where they had water and food. So, and that is the remez in this pasuk in Zechariah, Shenemar, the Achachid, I will wipe out, right? At Shloshet Haroim, the 3 shepherds, the Yerech Echad, who are the 3 shepherds, right? Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. I'm going to destroy them all in 1 month. What do you mean in 1 month? The Yerech Echad Meitu, that's the Gemara, the first wide line. Did they all die in the same month? Hello, Miriam Meita ben Nisan. Miriam died in the month of Nisan. It doesn't say that in the Torah. Rashi points out that right before Miriam died, it says that in Chodesh HaRishon, the people came to Midbar Sin, and then Miriam dies. So Miriam must have died in Nisan. Aaron Ba'av, where the Torah actually does say, it says Aaron died on the first day of the 5th month, which is the month of Av. And Moshe Ba'adar, Moshe died in Adar, which is not quite said in the Torah, but is remissed to in the Torah. Elam, and so how could you say there were 3 shepherds who all died in 1 month if they didn't die in the same month at all? They died a whole year apart, right? Nisan, Av, and Adar. Elam, Melamed shenitbatlu shlosha matanot tovot shnatna ayadam v'nistalku kulam b'yerech echad. What it's referring to is not the 3 shepherds, right? The 3 parnasim. It's referring to the 3 gifts that came through the shepherds, which ultimately all came down to Moshe. And when Moshe died, they all went away. Says the Gemara. Now, that's the great, beautiful Braita, right? I love this Braita. It's a great story. But ask the Gemara now, 4 lines from the bottom, Alma ashkichan parnasah b'shvil yachid. You see that you can have parnasah, you can have water and rain, water and man and protection, all because of one individual, because of Moshe. And you just said that you can't get parnasa for an individual; it's only for a tzipor. Says the Gemara, well, Shani Moshe. I mean, Moshe is not your regular guy. Kivan de rabimhu boy kirabim dami. Since Moshe was basically a public servant, more than just a public servant, and he was the public servant, so therefore it's kirabim dami. It's like doing it for a tzibur. Now, interesting story now, another great story, 3 lines in the bottom. This is a really top hits here. Rav Huna bar Manoach. Rav Huna, the son of Manoach, and Rav Shmuel bar Idi, and Rav Chia me Vastanya. Okay, these 3 rabbis, they were buddies. They had a good clique going on. Havishchichi kamei de Rava. And they would learn in front of Rava. The 3 of them would get together, they'd come to the Beit Midrash, and they really understood each other. They learned together. They had a great relationship. Unfortunately, Rava died, right? Kinach nafshe de Rava. When the teacher Rava died, so this happens in life, they went up to the Kamei de Rav Papa. The 3 of them got together and they said, let's go to Rav Papa's shir. I don't know, same city. We'll go learn from Rav Papa. But of course, as it usually happens, they were not all that impressed with Rav Papa, right? Ki ata kol ema davi amalu shmaita. Whenever Rav Papa would say something, and they didn't understand it or they didn't agree with it, right? Havi Maramzi Hadadi, they would like snicker to each other. They would roll their eyes together, So they had this group sitting in the back. Every time Rav Papa said something that they didn't like, or that didn't make sense, or that wasn't explained, they would be joking. They would be making, of course, any teacher knows, right? I'm sure you've all experienced this many times, right? They're a bunch of making trouble in the back. So Cholish Naite, so Rav Papa felt really bad, right? It's a really bad feeling if you're teaching and people are sort of making fun of what you're teaching. So anyways, Rav Papa felt bad. That night, or one night, top of Amabet, Tet Amabet, Akruye Bechalme, right, he had a dream, and in his dream, he read this pasuk, the Achid at Shlosha Taroim, I will destroy the 3 shepherds. So Rav Papa was like, I'm gonna, Lamachar, the next morning, he didn't feel so bad anymore. When he said goodbye to them, Amar Lahu, Lizlu Rabbanam B'Shalma, good luck, guys. You're in big trouble. So, there's different versions of exactly what happened next. Doesn't say in our Gemara, but it's definitely an ominous sign. So they started up with the wrong person, I guess.
So wait, in the first story, the Shlosha Ro'im is a positive, and this one it's a negative?
No. Well, I mean, the Torah says I'll destroy them. It means I'll get rid of them. I'll wipe them out.
Oh, I see. But in the first story,
they're 3 good people. It's Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam.
But don't they call them Ro'im? No, they don't call them.
They are.
Yeah.
But the Navi is talking, in Zechariah, is talking about that unfortunately they all died, right? It's part of the curse there.
Okay.
But here, anyways, it was a remez in his dream to these 3 troublemakers, but 3 shepherds. Now, continues another story of Rav Simi bar Ashi. Rav Simi bar Ashi, Havishchiach kamei de Rav Papa. Rav Simi bar Ashi used to go and learn with Rav Papa. Seems like Rav Papa had a tough time with students, right? So Rav Simi bar Ashi used to go learn in front of Rav Papa. Havimakshi leituva, he would ask him a ton of questions. He never stopped. He would harass him. And whenever Rav Papa said something, they always have that person in the audience who's got to stop you and ask too many questions. Not in a good way. Here they're all good, right? Ask too many questions. So Yumachad, Chazia de Nafal. One day, Rav Simi bar Ashi comes into Shul, and Rav Papa is falling on his face, which is our word for tachna, right? He put his head down on the table, and he's davening, which is what we do for tachna, right? We call him the filat apayim, falling on your face. You bend your head down and you say your most intimate, deep tefillot to Hashem. So Rav Papa is sitting there with his head on the table, davening, and Rav Simi bar Ashi listens in. Shameh, he hears the Amar. What did Rav Papa daven for? Rachmana litzlan mikisufa desimi chimi. Well, God should save me from the embarrassment that I get from simi. Right? So he's davening that he should be saved from the humiliation he has in the shir every day from this Talmud, from Shimi bar Ashi. So Rav Papa was really, bothered by this. So he realized, oh boy, I thought I was, a good student. I was asking a lot of questions, but I'm clearly making a lot of trouble. So Kabul Alesh Tikuta, he accepted that he's going to be quiet. He's not going to bother him anymore. The Tulo actually, and he didn't ask him any more questions after that. So again, these are just agaritas, but an interesting story about, asking too many questions, asking not enough questions, but that's the story. Now back to our Gemara. That's what Rabbi Yochanan said, right? Remember, in the beginning of this whole idea, that an individual, it can rain for an individual. Says the Gemara, Af Reish Lakish Savar Matar B'Shvil Yachid. Reish Lakish, when he was alive, right, also agreed with this and said that it will rain for an individual. How do we know? Amar Reish Lakish, Minayin Lamatar B'Shvil Yachid, that it can rain even for an individual. Dichtiv, because the pasuk says also in Zechariah, Sha'alu me'Hashem Matar Be'it Malkosh. But you asked Hashem for rain in the time that it was coming down, and Hashem osech chazizim. We're going to see what chazizim mean, but it's some kind of rain, like pouring rain, let's say. Hashem made chazizim, matar and rain. Geshem yitain lahem leish esev basadeh. Hashem gave rain to them, to each person, for the esev, for the grass in their field. Now, what does that mean? Yacha lakol. You might think that God only gives rain when it benefits the whole world, or the whole city, let's say. Talmud lomar leish. That God will make it rain even for one individual. Okay, but you might thought, Tanya, ilaish, yachol lechol sadotav. Means a person who's got, a lot of fields, and when they need rain for their fields, God will make it rain. Says the Gemara, no. The pasuk is saying, Talmud lomar sadeh, even for one field, even if you have one, all your fields are great. The one field was planted late and it needs rain, Hashem can make it rain for just that field. And is sadeh, so if he just said the word sadeh, I would have thought yachol lechol sadeh, for a whole field. Talmud lomar eseh, even for a row of grass, right? That grass didn't grow well. You need some more rain. Hashem can make it rain just for that. Like Kihadr of Daniel ben Katina, like the story of Rav Daniel bar Katina, Havile Ahi Ginata, he had a garden, he had a prized rose garden, and Kol Yuma Havi Azo V'Sayerla. Every day he would walk through his garden and look at his plants, and he would see which ones need rain, which ones are growing, which ones are sagging, and he would say, Amar, Ha-Mishra Ba'imaya, this row needs water. The Ha-Mishra Lo Ba'imaya, this row is okay. The red roses need water, the hydrangeas don't need water, the apples are doing okay. He would say it and daven, and Vata Mitra, and then the rain would come. And it would just rain where he needed the water, right? Just fall in the right spot. So obviously this is a very unique person. It doesn't happen for many of us, but you see that it's impossible. Hashem will bring rain, and even in very specific cases where for the zchut of an individual, if that individual, of course, is meriting of that.
I thought before we were talking about it'll rain for everybody because of the zchut of one person. But here it's like it's just going to rain for the one person who.
Right. So Rashi actually said before that Rashi didn't talk about the same level of prime. Rashi said before it was where other people don't need the rain. Right. My crop's are already done. I don't need any more rain.
Right. But you're going to get it anyway because
you're going to get it anyways. Correct. So this is a different level, but this is the same idea though. This is Rav Daniel bar Katina obviously was a special person. Like not everyone can walk through their garden and ask God for rain there and not there. But it exists. If you're of that level, whatever that level is, then such a thing can happen.
I mean, I've seen it rain like one block it's raining and one block it's not raining.
There you go. Maybe they're tzaddikim. Why os Hashem osech chazizim? What does it mean? Hashem will make what are chazizim? Right? Chazizim literally means like the flow of rain. What does that mean? Amar Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina Malamed shechot tzaddik v'tzaddik Hakadosh Baruch Hu oselo chaziz b'fnei atzmo. God will make a stream of rain for each tzaddik, like you just said. My block will get rain. My block will get rain. Like God makes rain. Rain can be very individualized. My chazizim. Now, what's the plural? I'm Rabbi Yehuda parchot. Chazizim literally means rain that parich means to like fly. Right? Parich ba'avir. The rain that's flying. What is flying? I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Siman nematar parchot. A sign of rain coming is when you have clouds that are flying. Right? What does that mean? Clouds that are flying. My parchot. Rav Papa, it means Iva Kalisha. You have a cloud, Iva is like a cloud that's thin, Tuti Iva Samichta, that's below a thick cloud. And you can see this often. Right? You have these very thick clouds that look like they're solid, basically in higher level, and then you have the fluffy clouds underneath them. Right? So when you see such a thing, you see and then obviously relative to the upper clouds, the lower clouds are moving faster, right? So they look like they're flying past. So you see these, that's the pareach. You see these clouds flying past, that's a sign that you're going to have a very strong rain. that there's a big rain coming. Amr Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda Nihila Mikami Mitra. If you get a little bit of drops before rain, that's a sign that Ati Mitra, the rain's about to come. Meaning if it's drizzling before what looks like a rainstorm, the rainstorm's about to happen. But if you have them Batar Mitra, meaning if you've had a strong rain and then it turns into a drizzle, then it means Pasuk Mitra, it means it's stopping, right? Which is Mikami, now how do you know that? Or what's the simon, says the Gemara? Mikami Mitra, before the rain, it means Ati Mitra, Simanich Mehulta. It's like a sifter, like a sieve, right? Where if you take the flour and you push it on the sieve, initially a little bit will fall out, the very fine stuff. And then the more you shake it, you start getting much larger quantities. The same thing's with the rain. It's like getting ramped up. So a little bit comes at first and then a lot comes down. So it's on its way. But if it's Batar Mitra, Pasuk Mitra, if you get a little bit of rain after a big rain, it means it's stopping. Simanich Charya Di'izi. I don't know what this is from, but the semen of that is the dung of a goat, which I will have to believe Rashi, who says that when goats expel dung, they usually have a big amount first and then it becomes small amounts afterwards. So again, very, very strange random reference here, but that's what it means. That's what Rashi and Tosfos, they don't say that that's how the dung of a goat comes out. It's a large amount in the beginning and then it gets to be drops. Anyways, 2 dots, right? The 2 dots here in the middle, which don't have any business being here because we're in the middle of a sugya, but it gives us a spot to reconnect. Ula Ikla the Bavel. Now, Ula, who lived in Eretz Yisrael initially, came down to Bavel, and Chaza Porchot. He saw these clouds that were flying, right? He saw this little bit of rain that was about to come, and he remembered his Gemara, which said that when you see clouds that are Porchot, it means a big rain's about to come. So Amar Luhu, so he said to all the people there, look, I know it's about to rain. Panu mani, take all the clothing, all the belongings from outside, the hashtati mitra, because it's about to rain. So clear, everything you don't want to get wet, take from it, take outside, take inside. Lasuf lati mitra, but it then never rained. They schlepped all the chairs and tables inside, and the rain never came. Right? So obviously he was wrong, but he was wrong because the rules in Eretz Yisrael are not the same rules as Bavel, right? The fact is that in Bavel, the rain rules are different. And therefore, Ula sort of cursed it out. Amr, he said, just like the Babylonians are liars, their rain is a liar. Meaning the simanim that I was taught are not reliable here. So they you could tell they weren't always that fond of Bavel. Ula Ikla Bavel. Now, another part of this story of Ula going to Bavel is that Ula went to Bavel, in the story they always tell us, he walked into like Walmart, right? Chazi Malei Tzana de Tamri Bezuza. He saw a big basket full of these beautiful dates, right? Tamarim are dates. Thank you. Yeah, for a zuz, right? Meaning in Eretz Yisrael, there was, the ground is hard. It's hard to find these things. You got to pay up. He walked in, as my cousins would say, my nieces would say, there were pineapples everywhere, right? You could just get whatever you wanted. And it was cheap as can be. And he said, oh my goodness, look, the food is so cheap here. Amar, he said, Maleit sana de dufsha bezuza. You can get a basket full of sweet things for a zuz. Ubavleilo aski boraita. No, they're not learning Torah. Meaning the quality of life here is it's so cheap to live. You get food so easily. You don't need to work hard because you don't need a lot of money. So why aren't they learning more Torah? They're such bums, right? Anyways, so he buys the basket and he eats the delicious dates and he eats the whole basket, right? So Balayla that night, Saru, he's got stomach pains. He's cramping. He's going to the bathroom. He's suffering from eating all these dates. Amar, and then he took a different tune. He said, Malay sana disachina bezuza. You can buy a basket full of knives, right, for a zuz, meaning these dates are like knives. They're stabbing me inside. Ubavlay aski boraita, and they're still learning Torah, meaning how could they do anything here when it's this painful, when the food causes you such distress, when you have such bathroom issues?
He ate so many days, you have to moderate your consumption of dates.
Exactly. But his point was that I guess yes. I think he was making the point that he overdid it clearly.
Yeah.
Tanya says the Braita, and this is the last thing we'll learn today. It's until the end of the daf. A very interesting and very bizarre machloket between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. The machloket is, where does rain come from? Does rain come from the ocean, the ground, or does rain come from the sky? from the heavens? Good question, right?
This gets back to, didn't they have a machloket in the beginning of the Masechet
Correct.
about Nesiv Haruach and Merida Geshem?
They did. It's
Like
because
when you start saying,
there's other. They also have a different machlok about whether the world was created, the sky was created. Like this connects to
probably
several of
correct.
these machlokets about how you view earth and heaven. But let's see their opinions. Tanya says the Braita. Rabbi Eliezer Omer Kol Olam Kulo Mimei Ukiyanis Haushota. The whole world gets water from the oceans, right? The water's in the oceans. It circulates. He turns out to be correct, right? It
Yeah.
circulates. It goes up to the clouds, and that's what nourishes the entire world. So whether, even if you're very far away from the ocean, right, you could be hundreds of miles, but that's where you ultimately get your water from.
It's
Shenema.
true.
How do I know that? Says Rabbi Eliezer. Not because I went to ecology class, right? But because it says in the pasuk in Parshat Breshit, the Eid Yalem min haaretz, a cloud comes up from the ground. V'yishket kol pnei ha'adama. So the cloud rises from the ground, meaning from the water on the ground, and provides rain for the entire world. So the rain comes ultimately from the ground, meaning from the oceans. So it's a good pasuk. Amar le Rabbi Yoshua, says Rabbi Yoshua, it doesn't make any sense. Hello, me okeanos meluchanein. What do you mean? The oceans are salty. Have you ever had rain is not salty? Rain is clear, beautiful water. Amar lo. So Rabbi Eliezer said back, well, the mamtakim ba'avim, right? They get sweet in the clouds. The clouds desalinate them. They
true.
hydrate. It's true, but like I don't know what they knew, but that was what they said.
Well, I think actually the evaporation, the salt doesn't evaporate. Does that?
Right. So, okay, what I'm saying, but it's true. There's not a big machine in the clouds that's desalating.
But he has the right idea.
He's perfect. He's on. Says, but that's Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says no. Kol olam kulam mimayim hel yonim u'shoteh. All the world gets their liquid, their water from there's water up in the atmosphere. There's water in the sky. The mayim hel yonim that the pasuk talks about. That's where all the rain comes from. Shenemar lematar hashamayim tishtem mayim. From rain of heaven, that's where you're going to drink water. The rain comes from heaven. The rain does not come from the earth. Aye. What about the pasuk that says that the clouds come up from the earth? Elamani mekayim ve'ed ya'alem min haaretz. That tells you that the ananim are mitgabrim ve'olim l'rakia. The ananim are basically, again, in his imagination or his shot, ananim are like empty vessels, right? They gather together, the ananim, and they climb up to the sky, right? L'rakia. Upotchin pihem kinod. They open their mouths. There's like an opening in the cloud, and mikablim meimatar, and the water is poured into the clouds. Right, so the clouds are clearly the vessel, but according to Rabbi Yoshua, the clouds have to go and get a refill. Right, it's like a bucket. It's going to get a refill from up in Shemayim in the Rakia. Shenemar, and in fact, the pasuk seems to imply that Yisku matar liido minukavet hein. Yisku matar liido. They get filled up with water. And says Rabbi Yeshua, minukavet hein kivra. Right, the clouds have dots in them. They're open like a sieve in the bottom. So you pour in the water on the top, and then it starts raining because it comes out the bottom, right? Right? They come and they drop water basically on top of the rakia. Shnemar chashrat mayim avesh lakim. Ve'ein ben tipa letipa l'kamalei nima. Each drop of rain is like only a hair's breadth away from the next one, meaning they come in really immediately after each other. Rashi's not so sure about the next words, but we'll read the Gemara anyways. And this teaches you, Rashi understands it's the next thing, but it could be the past thing. That the day of rain is as great as the day of creation. Meaning every day that it rains, it's like God's creating the world anew. That God does greatness that cannot be chiker. Right? It says that God puts rain on the earth. The God, if you don't know, if you haven't heard, Hashem is the God of the world. So the word cheker is a reference to God's creation, and the word cheker is a reference to rain. So, anyways, again, Rashi's not so sure why we quote that in the middle of this Gemara, but that's something we've quoted earlier in the Masechet as well. Now, this is the fundamental machloket. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, does rain come from the ocean, or does rain come from the rakia, some water up above? Ask the Gemara, Kiman Azla Hadichtiv, right? On Rosh Chodesh, or wherever on Shabbos, if you have the custom, we read Baruch Nafshi, right? And Baruch Nafshi we read, Mashke Harim Me'aliotav, that God waters that mountains from the heights. So what does that imply? That the rain's coming from the heights, not from the ground, right? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, it means Ma'aliotov Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu. Come on, Rabbi Yeshua. That sounds like Rabbi Yeshua, because Rabbi Yeshua says it's from the heights. This is what Rabbi Eliezer would say to you. Rabbi Eliezer would say, even the Salki Lahata Mashkem Aliyatav Karilu. But I agree that the rain goes up to the sky before it comes down, right? It's not like the ocean is pouring water on the fields, but the water starts in the ocean, starts in the seas and the rivers, and goes up to the sky. And therefore it's called being watered from the heavens. And says Rabbi Eliezer, Dilo Tema Hachi, the pasuk in Devarim, in the Tochacha, which says, Avak va'afar min hashamayim, right? You're going to have such a dry famine, dust and dirt's going to be falling from the sky. It doesn't mean that there's a container in the sky of dirt that's going to fall, right? It means it's going to be so dry and windy that dirt will be blown up into the sky and then fall down on you like rain. So that's the same thing that happens with rain. It goes up to the sky and falls back down on you. How would you ever find dirt coming from the heaven? Since it goes up to the sky, meaning it gets blown up there in the storm, in a tornado, then when it comes back down, it's caught from the skies. And since the rain goes up there to the heavens or to the sky, it's called from coming from the heights. One more pasuk, Kiman Azla Hadam Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina quoted the pasuk in Tehillim, also a very famous pasuk, Kones Kaned Mehayam, right? That God brings together like a nade, like a bundle, like a bottle, the water of the sea. Notein be'otzorot tehomot. God puts the water, or put in the deep otzar, right? In the otzar. The otzar is the storehouse of the tehomot, of the depths. What did Rabbi Chanina say? Mi garam the otzrot sheitmalu bar. What causes the storehouses to be full of grain? It's the tehomot, it's the depths, right? And that supports Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that the water comes from the ocean and the depths of the ocean. That's what the pasuk is saying, that the depths of the ocean are what ultimately water the grounds and fill up the grain. Rabbi Yeshua would say, Haru b'briyato shel olam. That's referring to one specific time at creation. That basically at the creation of the world, all the water was on the bottom, right before Hashem separated between the mayim atachtonim and the mayim elyonim, and that there was a point where the water had to go from below to above, but that was a one-time thing. Now, when it rains, according to Rabbi Yeshua, the water doesn't come from the oceans; it comes from this source above. I'm not sure what he thought about how it recycles there. I'm not so sure. Right? How does it go back? But I guess Rabbi Yeshua was not worried how Hashem could do that. And that was Rabbi Yeshua's opinion, and Rabbi Eliezer's opinion, which is a little bit more consistent with scientific understanding, is that the water comes from the earth, from the oceans that are on the earth. And we will stop here.
Why doesn't Rabbi Yeshua quote, the Rakia idea, Ben Amayim, Lamayim, right? Isn't it the same Bereshit?
Yes, I'm not sure.
That would have been the best pasuk for him, because it implies that there's like a storehouse of water up there.
Right, but it doesn't mean that we get that storehouse of water.
Oh.
Right? Rabbi Eliezer could also agrees that there's some mayim halyonim, but it doesn't mean it's falling down.
I see.
Right? How do you know it could be there's a parallel something. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what those mayim elyonim are, just to be clear. But
right, but I mean,
it doesn't mean that our rain comes from those mayim elyonim.
Yeah, that's true, but it kind of makes sense in terms of what Rabbi Yeshua is trying to point out.
Okay, either way, very interesting machloket, and I think tomorrow you'll pick up a little bit more of this concept, these strange concepts. Shavua Tov. I'm not sure what's happening on Thursday, but I don't think I'm teaching because I'm volunteering in the morning, so I don't think I could do it.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe David is doing it.
Yeah, I have to. I wouldn't be opposed, but I have to. I told him I'd be there at 8:00. I could be there at 8:30, but I certainly can't be there later.
Why wouldn't David do it if it's Thursday?
You might. Well, because often holidays I would do, but I don't remember what we did last year.
Right. Okay.
I'm happy to do Friday because I'm not working, so I guess we could. I'll talk to them and see who's around.
Okay.
So we'll send an email, but Motzei Shabbat will be 45 minutes after Havdalah.
Okay.
Great.
And the next
Thank
Sunday time we'll try for 8:00, or we'll see. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Whatever you want. I can also do in the morning on next Sunday.
All right, we'll talk about it. I think we can decide.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're-
Shavua tov.
What,